Hi, I'm Fifo from Cheesecake Labs, and today I'll show how to use the Stellar Lumens Cost Estimator, a tool made by Cheesecake Labs to better help players from the Stellar ecosystem understand how network fees can impact their projects as they grow in scale. When you first access the spreadsheet, first make sure that you make a copy of the spreadsheet so you can play around, customize, and make your own simulations. So here, I'll go ahead and just make a copy of my own spreadsheet, my Lumens simulation. Once your copy is ready, the first step is to set some configuration parameters which are the basis for the calculation. For this, access the Configure tab. Here you can set how the price is converted between XLM and US dollars, as well as other aspects of the calculation. If this is your first time, I recommend you just leave the default values and move on to the next step. For this second step, let's navigate to the Add Transaction Form tab. Here, we are going to register transactions that can be used to calculate different scenarios. Here you should create those transactions as close as possible as the transactions you expect to execute in your project. So let's say that hypothetically, I want to build an application that is going to create accounts for users, and in this process, I want these accounts to be sponsored, I want to set a trust line for a different currency, and I want to do it all in one go. So let's go ahead and configure this transaction. First, I'll identify my transaction with a name that resembles its purpose. So in this case, account creation. The second step is to set a category for this transaction. This is used to better group different transactions that serve the same purpose. So here I'll set as onboarding phase, which is the phase in which this transaction will be executed. Down below, I can flag if my transaction includes a sponsorship and also if I plan to use fee bump as a mechanism for this transaction. Then I just need to add the operations that are going to compose my transaction. So I'll add one by one, just as I would configure the envelope in the real scenario used by my project. Once I added all of these operations, I now can run the automation to include this transaction in the list available for calculation. So I'll click on this button here on top, add transaction to list, and I gotta wait a while the script's running. If this is your first time running this script in the spreadsheet, you'll be prompted to authorize the spreadsheet to run this kind of scripts. So here, let me click on OK. Select my Google account and authorize the spreadsheet. Done. Since it's authorized, now I can go ahead and click again on the button and it should run the automation. Once it's done, I'll see this success prompt indicating that it was added to the list. Also, if you want to add other transactions, you can go ahead and click on Clear Fields to clear all the fields, so you can go and start a new transaction from scratch to add to your list. Once you added a bunch of these transactions to your list, all the configuration is done. We can move ahead to the actual calculation. So for this, I'll access the Calculate tab, and here is where the magic happens. I'll start by setting the max base fee, which is the maximum amount we're willing to pay for a transaction to be included in a block. This helps us understand the upper limits of our project cost as it scales in the future. Now, under the simulation area, I can select from my registered transactions and define how many occurrences for each one of those I want to simulate. As soon as I select that, I'll start seeing the values being calculated in real time. The first value refers to lumens locked, the amount of lumens that are locked in my account as a consequence of some of the operations executed in this transaction, in this case, the account and the trust line creation. The minimum fees refer to the minimum amount in lumens that my transaction has to pay to be included in a block. This is the case when the network is not facing any congestion at all and all transactions can be processed immediately. The next column refers to the average, which is a much more accurate value for how much my transaction would have cost. This is based on the historical data for how much on average a transaction has been charged to be included in a block. In case you'd like, you can customize this value under the Configure tab. The next column refers to the maximum amount of fees that my transaction is going to be charged based on the maximum amount that I have set on the top of the spreadsheet. So this is just to give an estimate as the worst case scenario, how much would have my transactions costed to me to be executed if the network was under heavy load all the time. The last column is the category that I have set for my transaction, which is used to identify to which group this transaction belongs to. Now, let's go ahead and add the second transaction and define a different number of occurrences. Here, I'll select transfer and set as 5,000 occurrences for a transfer transaction. Immediately, we can see that the values are much different than the account creation. Here we can see that no lumens are locked in this situation, as a transfer is a simple payment being performed in the network. The minimum fees is a little bit higher because of the amount of operations we have in this transfer, and the same is true for the average fees and the max fees. Now, if you look to the right, we can see a breakdown by category. So if we have a bunch of transactions set in the spreadsheet, these will be grouped under the category, and you'll be able to see their total values of lumens locked, minimum fees, the average and the maximum, as well as a conversion to US dollars, which is based on the conversion rate set in the Configure tab. So here we are seeing a live conversion for the current price for lumens in US dollars. And finally, here on top, we see the total summary for the whole simulation. So as the minimum balance, we see 750 lumens being locked as a result of these transactions, which is roughly $89 based on the current conversion. For minimum fees, we see 0.09 lumens, which are a bit over 1 cent of a dollar right now. For average, we see 18 lumens, which are a bit over $2, and that's the most likely scenario to happen based on historical data. So that's how much I expect my project to actually cost to run on the Stellar network. Down below, we have the maximum, but that is very unlikely to happen. So this is just here as a reference to what the upper limit would be based on the strategy we have set as the max base fee that we are willing to pay for the transactions. So I hope you all make good use of this tool to run different simulations and estimate the scale of your projects. Please don't forget to leave your feedback, as it's very important to help us continue improving this tool for the future iterations. Thank you.